Welcome, welcome. My name is Aoife, and I'm a mind body coach working mostly with highly sensitive women, helping them to learn how to heal themselves from anxiety, depression, chronic pain, and chronic illness, all kinds of things. And I'm super excited today. We have the beautiful Bernice, and she's the associate director of the Better Mind Center in LA, and she has her own private practice where she is practicing psychotherapy, mind body centered. And today we are gonna get through 7 of the juiciest, most common questions asked in the mind body community. So stay tuned for this one. Bernice, do you want to introduce yourself or add anything else?
No, I think you did such a wonderful job. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you and really going through these questions too that are such, they're so common and they're asked so frequently too. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yay. Yeah, it's the facts, isn't it? The frequently asked questions. And I'm gonna list them all for you. So if you're like, that's my question, then you know to stay listening for your question. So number one is, have you worked with blank symptoms before? Such a common question. Number two is, how long before I start feeling better? Very
Mhm.
common question. Number three is, do I really need to feel my feelings to heal? I've started hearing that one recently. The next one is, just tell me what to do and when. I love that one. The next question is really, really interesting. What if I'm not 100% convinced my symptoms are mind body based? And the next question is, I am not comfortable with the word compassion. I forgot to write at the end of that. I'm not comfortable with the word compassion. Like, what else can I use? Is that it? What else can I say?
Yeah, so like many are not comfortable with techniques or even the incorporating self-compassion language to them. So what else can they practice saying for themselves? Yeah.
I love this one. Really, really interested with this one. And then the last one is, I don't resonate with the word safe. What can I do instead? So
Mhm.
they're all really juicy. And we're going to start with, have you worked with blank symptoms before? Because I have done, yeah, so many calls and chatted with so many people, and everyone, I mean, it's helpful when you hear recovery stories of people who've had exactly what you have, and they have walked a specific roadmap and gotten to where you would like to go to, but it's not always the case, right?
Right, right. And I think that's like the biggest thing too is, they're looking for someone who understands the ins and outs of what they're experiencing and that they recognize that struggle that they're faced with too. So I think that's when they're coming in and asking, have you seen someone with these specific symptoms? It's more just like, can you actually be the one that can help me? Right. And then I hear so much fear in that question too of for the majority of a lot of the clients have already tried multiple things too. And so this is kind of the last thing that they're hoping is going to get them out. And so they're really looking for someone that knows what their symptom is. But the thing is that there's so many symptoms too. It's like pain, vertigo, headaches, right? Burning sensations. And then it goes down into like very specific parts of the body, pelvic, foot, knee. And there's maybe I haven't seen all of the symptoms yet, but I have definitely worked with a lot. And it's just being able to uncover, where is that fear really coming from, but also let's look to see how are the symptoms mind body based. And the one thing that I am convinced is that the mind body approach can be helpful if the symptoms are mind body based as well too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people, because I know that this was my journey, have been told maybe a lot of quite scary things. Maybe if you've had a lot of scans, they've seen irregularities or for me, I'd also been to a lot of the alternative route, and I had been told like I had candida and like just all these different things. So there was a lot of information, a lot of misguided information, a lot of scary information for me. And all the while, over all those years, there was so much inconsistency. So I would imagine that when someone comes, like they've reached that last stop and they just want someone who can tell them for sure that this is the last stop and that they can dive in. And for me, what the part of the mind body science that I love is that the nervous system is connected to everything. And because I loved biology and I studied anatomy and physiology, so um I know like all the different systems like in the body, and I can see how the nervous system is connected to everything. And so for me, I and I don't even know if this is helpful, but what I say to people is like the nervous system is connected to like every nerve fiber and cell in your body, then it can manifest in any way for you. And it can certainly help take the edge off something, bringing the stress and the thoughts about it and the emotions that are involved in it, bringing all that down. So like it's definitely gonna benefit, and then see what happens. If I didn't have that symptom, so I don't can't say like, yes, I had that symptom, da 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 da, then
Mhm.
that's kind of what I try to say to people.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, really recognizing that, yes, the central nervous system is such a huge contributor to what we're experiencing too. And so, really assessing that out and recognizing the power that our central nervous system really has and trying to be protective. And, one of the biggest things that we often hear is, the pain is a danger signal. And so how can we put that into to work for us and recognizing that it's trying to be protective to some extent. And so, yeah, really recognizing the power of our central nervous system is so, so impactful for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Like on all your immune system. I have clients come to me with like different immune problems, and I know for myself when I am stressed out, my immune system goes down and I'm more prone to infections. And yeah, like I just love what you said, just recognizing, just I feel like that was a really big moment for me, just really when that sank in, just how powerful the central nervous system is. And
Mhm.
if you just make the decision to go all in and work on the central nervous system, you can't really go wrong. Like maybe there's like other things that you also need to do, but if you kind of just choose to take that on as one of your main practices, you can't really go wrong. I feel, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I mean, just even from my own personal history of pain too, like lower back pain and chronic migraines, and so hearing, I definitely pursued the medical route for the longest time, and then when I finally came into this world, I was like, oh my gosh, the like I so much fear wrapped around my symptoms, so much fear around so many other external factors too. And so again, bringing it back to, how my body was really signaling all of these dangers, that I was telling myself that, yeah, I feel like I am in danger right now. And I am nervous about the headache. I am nervous about like the aura sensation that I'm having. And I feel like there's something wrong in my spine, that like the pain in my lower back is just not going away. And sometimes it's so intense. And so, yeah, I think really recognizing how much of like my own thought and preoccupation around my sensations too were really flaring all of those things up even more so. Yeah. And so once I finally was able to really make the separation, I was like, okay, I know what's happening here now. I understand that I don't necessarily need to be chasing the medical route where I wasn't really getting any answers or any relief. And it's just like, okay, I'm going to bring it into my own awareness and really putting in motion, just recognizing my own stressors, what was happening, and the things that I needed to put in place so that I can heal and that I can be okay with my body and the messages that I was getting too.
I love that. I love that so much. So if you are the person who has that burning question, like, will this, is this going to work for my particular symptom? I also have to say, right, a lot of my symptoms when I started off, I wasn't, I just had the curable app. And I kept listening. I listened to all the back pain, like experts, even though I never had back pain in my life. But what they were saying resonated with me. So I really did just take what everyone was saying and I applied it to all my symptoms. And it also helped that I heard, I think it was Dr. Strax or someone talking about having a skin outbreak like all over their body. One of them, one of the experts anyway. And I was really starting to see how, like, wow, like back pain, skin stuff. Like, I was really starting to see how broad the range of symptoms, very, very real, very physical, debilitating symptoms were arising for people. And I just applied it. No one was talking about period pain. No one was talking about loads of things that I had. And I just applied it. I listened because what they were saying just made sense to me
Mhm.
deeply in a very deep way. And I also I think I heard them speak a little bit about depression, but for me, it really made sense that when my nervous system was in a state of stress, that my chemicals, my own body's chemicals were out of balance. So the serotonin, the melatonin for sleeping, and the oxytocin just for feeling good. I wasn't because I was so, it's in such a dark, desolate place that I wasn't able to feel the joy of anything. The biological explanation of that with the nervous system just made so much sense to me. So,
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yes.
so let's do question 2, which is how long before I start feeling better?
Oof, yeah. That one is just patience, right? But one of the biggest thing is like we start feeling better, like healing in general is a culmination of learned experiences or corrective experiences, really. And so, to get there too, I think there's a lot of trying to understand what are our triggers, what are the things that kind of like set us up into like a flare up a bit, but also really understanding what are like the things that help us, what are the things that help alleviate some of our symptoms, and really recognizing what are the associated fears and how do we get into a place of exposing ourselves a bit from those fears so we get more of those corrective experiences and really starting to create a path for that healing journey for ourselves. And so, really understanding that um, feeling better is different for everyone. And I think a lot of people, do a little bit of that comparison if they hear, a testimonial from someone and they're like, why can I get that? Right. And I think there's so much pressure and there's so much intensity with this sense of like urgency to get to that place as well. And I think that there's so much at play that only contributes even more so back to the central nervous system of saying this isn't working for me, this isn't working for me. And it's like, okay, let's practice a little patience, let's practice a little bit of grounding, and let's practice like really tailoring it specifically to you and your needs. Like it's wonderful to hear that someone's doing really well, but how do we get you to feeling well? And so recognizing that they're two very different stories too, or sometimes can be very similar, but that comparison piece is just kind of sends us into a bit of a tailspin as well. So recognizing that um, putting in practice, our own tools box can be so beneficial and seeing, okay, what works for me that probably didn't work for someone else, but that's okay. And, being, feeling confident in like those little tools that we start building for ourselves too, I think is so important. Yeah, and so I always just try to tell a lot of my clients, it's like, okay, you're in your own path. This is, your own healing journey that's very different from someone else's. And so even recognizing a little bit of glimmers when they start feeling better. And I'm like, look, there's progress here, and there's something that we can look forward to and be proud in our own successes as well. So yeah, like I think that's one of the biggest questions that I hear often too, is that, like, how long? And I'm like, oh my goodness, like there's so much intensity in that question too. And so let's, take a little bit of a breather and kind of reassess, what are the things that we can put in place for ourselves. Yeah.
I love how you answered that question so much. There's so many things I hadn't put into words before, how you really put things together. And so how you described, like, just it's a discovery almost of your own stressors and your own, how to alleviate your own symptoms for you, and how to like re-engage in your own life. And that little package is when you it's really a journey into yourself as well. You get to know yourself so well, and the symptoms and everything you've been told, and this whole the pain and symptom journey really takes you away from yourself and your life, and you're just going to appointments and you're getting nowhere. And so the healing is then you're just finding your way back to yourself. And it's so interesting because I still use the same process now all the time to continue to get to know myself better, to continue to get to know what triggers me, what stresses me, and how I can create and live a life that's supportive of me, of who I am. And there's lots of parts of me, like me being highly sensitive, and that I was really ashamed of in the past, and really felt this was something wrong and bad about me, and I needed to change these parts of me. And through doing this mind body healing, having this mind body healing process for myself, I've just really learned that there's parts of me I can't change, and I have gotten to know how beautiful and how powerful they are in their own way. And then I've learned that there are things in my life that I can change. And it's kind of like this dance that I'm learning all the time. And it helps me to have better relationships around me. Oh, and all these things then are all the time bringing more regulation to my nervous system, whereas in the past, everything was in a state of dysregulation. Um,
Mhm.
and just the piece of like it really is a journey of getting to know yourself. But I know that that place of like, I am in so much pain, that desperation of like, I just want the relief and I want it now. And like, that person got it, or why was it so easy for them? And it probably is really annoying to hear, like, oh, it's a journey to get to know yourself. You're like, what? Just give me the pain relief now. but but it really is, and it is richer. I always say you get more bang for your buck, because like I feel I got more bang for my buck because I didn't just get a symptom relief.
Mhm.
I got myself.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I love, love, love that you said that. And even in what you were describing earlier, of like the relationship dynamics, right? Like a shift in that. And I think the biggest relationship is art within ourselves. That relationship that we build with ourselves, that trust that we build with ourselves. And that's what it is. It's building the trust back with ourselves. And, in the journey as well, it's recognizing it doesn't mean that we need to change who we are entirely, but it just means, like, what are the things that we get to uncover for ourselves as well about this path and this process. And yes, 100%, like that outcome is like we get to feel stronger in ourselves. We get to feel more confident in the decisions that we make. And if we're practicing, let's say establishing boundaries as part of the healing journey as well, we feel so empowered when we recognize the power of saying, no, not today, and that feels good for ourselves, because then we recognize that that relationship dynamic is that we're listening to ourselves now. We're listening to what our body's not comfortable with, versus just kind of pushing through and putting ourselves in situations that we don't actually necessarily want to be in. And I think that it's a huge part of the healing journey, really, to just be able to reclaim ourselves back and saying, this is who I am. This is the new me, essentially. Yeah.
Totally. It's the me that was always here, just like underneath all the broken beliefs and um yeah, I just love that. I love that part of it as well. And this confidence. I remember in Dr. Schubner's book, he spoke a lot about like, you know, changing your stance, and he really spoke about how being more kind of assertive and confident in yourself was like regulate, it would regulate your nervous system, right? Because that like meekish, and being an Irish woman, it's very culturally ingrained in us to not bother anyone and to keep ourselves small and quiet and don't make a fuss. And so that actually puts you into an uneasy, dysregulated kind of state. So um like you were sharing on this journey of getting to know yourself, and then naturally starting to discover the boundaries that you have, and naturally starting to recognize and realize yeah, what you're available for and what you're not available for, that breeds a new kind of confidence. And it's not like a loud out there, I'm going to be assertive now confidence. It's a real true confidence in yourself, and like a resilience and a reliability that I never knew before. And that helps to regulate you on the like all the time. So that part I love.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. 100. And thank you so much for talking a little bit about like your cultural background. I think that cultural dynamics also have such a significant impact in ourselves too, right? Like how do we carry ourselves, and what are those ingrained messages from that just have been passed from generation to generation of how we need to act or how we need to be. And so when we start coming into, do we want to break that cycle for ourselves, and that just feels almost like life shattering a little bit. But it, again, it's not about changing who the person is entirely. It's just making just small adjustments, that the client really gets to decide what are those adjustments so that they feel better about some of those kind of cultural messages too, of like what's expected of a person. So, and then, I mean, myself being Latina, like there are so many cultural things that are ingrained in us too about, the woman's role and all of that. And so recognizing that I'm changing some of that, I'm not really falling in line with a lot of the Latino culture norms. And so that feels a little bit triggering to me too. It's just like, ooh, like, okay, I'm not going to do that. Okay, I won't do that. And then, kind of the more that I practice that for myself, the more I feel confident in that decision, that it's okay to be in this new person of myself, of like what I want to ultimately choose for myself too. So yeah,
I love
definitely.
that. Amazing. And it's changing things for the next generation. And so it's
Mhm.
really powerful. But I love what you shared, because for sure change is just not easy. And that it disrupts the nervous system. Like I'm not good with change. Like if I have to like just the smallest amounts of change really, really do affect me. But so when you do start to feel intuitively, because you're doing these practices, and you have a guide or mentor, and you're healing, and you're noticing this doesn't feel so good anymore, and then you start to make moves towards changing the relationship to yourself and these beliefs, it can be quite rattling, right? It can be like, ugh, like but within that, I always find something deep down, like in your soul, almost just knows that it's like your soul is calling for it. It's like, no, you can do it. And then like you described, like it is just incremental. A coach said to me once, strength grows in increments. So
Mhm.
it is just like, okay, I did that. That was really scary, and I thought I was gonna die, but I didn't die. I'm still here. And then maybe you just like do it again, and you're like, wow, I thought, the whole world was going to fall apart and I would lose all my friendships and families, but maybe, I don't know, it's different for everyone, but maybe some people stuck around and the world didn't fall apart. And it's just that strength, that incremental growth.
Yeah. One of the things that you just reminded me of too is kind of giving ourselves the permission, right, to step into some of these little changes that we're making for ourselves. Like we almost need the internal dialogue to be like, it's okay to step into this change. Yes, the change is definitely scary. And I think that's just kind of a default for many people, that change feels so kind of earth shattering to some extent. And it's just like, okay, I'll be okay, and that's one of the biggest things too, is like really telling my clients, like, will there be like a consequence to this change? Probably, probably. But will we be okay? Probably again. And it's just kind of finding and honing in really in, like, how do we continue to ground ourselves? How do we continue to give ourselves that permission too? So
I
yeah.
love that. It's just a thousand times a day telling yourself it's
Yeah.
okay. I got you. It's okay. I got you, girl. Basically.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
next question. Tell me, oh yeah, do I really need to feel my feelings to heal?
Yeah. Yes. That one, people, I often hear from my clients, like they get a little bit nervous about feeling their feelings, right? And if it has become this habit to, or instinct to not feel our feelings, our bodies are really saying, hey, you haven't felt, you're not giving a language to the unfelt or unsaid things. And so our body's definitely communicating that in the symptoms that we're experiencing. So, really kind of uncovering, why has it been a habit or an instinct to not experience anger, not experience sadness, or anxiety, or even sometimes happiness? Like I've seen clients who get nervous about stepping into happiness because they feel like, oh, it's only going to last for a little bit before something else happens. And so, that fear around, what will it feel like if I actually give myself the opportunity to feel this emotion? Will it feel like I'm going to spiral? Will it feel like, kind of similarly to what you were mentioning earlier, of like, this feeling feels so dangerous to me? And, recognizing that the feeling itself probably is really distressing, but it's not dangerous. It's not going to cause us any harm to just sit with, whatever feeling it is that we're experiencing. But, and it's not about, feeling our feelings doesn't mean that we're sitting and kind of just giving ourselves the whole day. It's more just kind of recognizing, giving language to those emotions that we don't give language to too, and saying, okay, it's here. What is it trying to tell me? And often it's like, what is the emotion, giving like a little bit of an in into, what is the need that I need met right now too. So yeah.
So much about needs being met. I had all that completely silenced to a point, right? When I was 9-year-old child, I was in a queue in the bank with my auntie and uncle, and I
Mhm.
needed to go to the toilet for so long, and I just didn't want to cause a fuss by asking to go to the toilet, and I ended up wetting myself as a 9-year-old girl in the bank. Like, what on earth? Like, why did that child not want to make a fuss? Do you know what I mean? It's just the need. I just silenced my own needs to such an extreme. And for me, this whole journey is just uncovering, getting to know, wow, I have all these different needs. And I actually used to cringe at the word needy. Like,
Mm,
and I was real, like, kind of had a tough shell or outer shell. And in relationships, I was always like very like aloof and the one that was like very cool and didn't care as much, didn't love as much or whatever. So I can see it all now, and then I was the one with all these symptoms and all this pain. Um, so yeah, learning to that I have all these emotions and that it's okay that it's okay that I have all these emotions and that it's okay, and that actually having needs is a way of connecting with people. Um, it's like not a I thought it was a problem that I would be burdening or taking from people. And because I wasn't meeting any of my needs ever, just my basic ones, obviously, that my body would get to a point where it was suffering so much that I had to ask for help. And only at that point was I okay with asking for help. So I
Mhm.
had to clamber back from that through this process to a point where I'm at now, but I'm always on this journey. My body is always going to keep telling me, oh, you have all these other needs, and this is, and learning how to communicate that with people and invite people into my life to meet those needs. And yeah, it's different way. It's like completely different lifestyle to how I was living before.
Yeah, and I love how you just described that too, that your body still communicates things to you. So it's really the symptoms are almost kind of a barometer to wait, what else is missing? What else am I what do I need in this moment really versus what's happening? Why is it here again? It's like, no, this is information for me now and I can utilize that to my advantage. And so it's that relationship dynamic shifts really completely with our bodies too and our emotions and saying okay again like what do I need in this moment. And I think it just comes down to like just that gentle question of what do I actually need right now, and what are some of the steps that I can take to either receive that or provide that for myself too. So yeah, yeah.
Love that. I love that. And so let's do the next question. Oh yeah, tell me what to do and when. This is the real like go getter. Okay, okay, I'm in. Tell me what to do and I'll do it now. And then they'll go off and they'll do it and they'll come back. Okay, I did it. What next?
Yes. Oh my gosh, you described that so well. Yes. And there's so much intensity behind that statement. It's not even a question. It's more just like, tell me what to do, right? And I feel like I hear that question so not even a question. I hear that statement so much in so many of like the beginning sessions. And it's just, they're tired, right? The clients are tired of going to go see multiple doctors, or tired of seeing multiple physical therapists or therapists in general, trying multiple medical treatments, the alternative approaches. Overall, they're tired, and they've seen so many providers who have been trying to be so helpful by saying take this or do this, right, and receiving no alleviation. And then they come into session and they're like wanting me to take the similar approach to be like, here's a prescription, essentially do this. And I'm like, no, I can't. It's very different for every single client that I have. And so everything that we do, it's like maybe if we're going to practice some mindful based exercises for one particular client, they'll be okay with doing it for maybe 10 minutes. But for another client, it's like sitting there for 10 minutes sounds like an infinity. And it's like, no, that doesn't work for me. So it's like, kind of going to the drawing board of what is what does the client need in the moment, but also what can the body tolerate and for how long too. And so it's just kind of recognizing, kind of giving ourselves a space to see what are some of the things that we can practice for ourselves. And so I can't tell one client what to do and then have it be like the fix all, because like they're steps and takes that we and essentially we're creating a foundation and then we build on that foundation for them so that they can kind of continue to practice on their own too, and feel confident in what they're doing and recognizing this back to the tools box, like they get to create their tools box and get to see what functions for them as well too. So
I love
taking
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that. And I think for the person who is like, just tell me what to do and what, it really is like you said, Bernice, it's like, okay, try a bunch of these different things and see what you like. Like, some people really don't like sitting with the meditations. They prefer more active things. And it's like, you
Mhm.
get just I always say when I'm giving all my tools to my clients, I'm like, pick that thing that you like and do that over and over again. And then do you know what? Over time, you kind of change and you're like, I'm bored of that. I have clients who like, into the journey, they're like, I don't want those meditations anymore, and they want something different. So then some people like to do the same thing for a long time. Everyone's
Yeah.
different. So
I-
but
exactly.
imagine, like you said, like imagine you starting your own very own toolbox, and this is literally going to be your toolbox for the rest of your life. You're going to create some new habits and some like strategies that you were never learned before, and just so you're going to try a few of them on for size, and you're going to choose the ones that you like for now, and you're going to build on that. But you're literally going to this is going to be your toolbox for the rest of your life. So look at it like this is you're like at the building stage, like you said, of the foundations.
Yeah, exactly. And also, you reminded me too of like, putting in motion habits, right? We got to practice before we make it an actual habit. And so it's kind of putting in practice some of these techniques and some of these tools. Again, really assessing, that's not for me, or there's this one, the somatic tracking can be really helpful, or just doing the deep breathing multiple times, like the 4-7-8 breathing technique is like so helpful for some, and some hate it. So it's, really kind of assessing what works for someone, and, continuing on again from what they can build on from those techniques too. So yeah, definitely.
Yep, Theon por Theonto, 100% agree.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, next question. Tell me what to do more. What if I'm not 100% convinced my symptoms are mind body based? And I've heard this a few times from particular people that have been like, I heard you have to believe 100% that this is mind body for any of this to work. So,
Mhm.
but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's more of, well, first of all, like I think, we're all biologically designed to believe that the pain that we're experiencing is causing us harm, right? But if we have that being hardly, like very hardwired, ingrained into us. But, could we just for a moment step aside and see, are there any discrepancies in our symptoms too? And really gathering some information about where are those discrepancies, right? Like when the pain started, what was occurring in our lives? Was there an actual physical injury at the beginning, but how we passed the recovery time from that initial injury? Are there any like associated fears to the symptoms too, like specific chair, temperature, sounds, food, really, and kind of gathering more of that information and recognizing, when do our symptoms flare up? When do our symptoms feel like they feel way more intense in our bodies too? And so it's okay if they're not, that's I always tell my clients, like, it's okay if you're not 100% convinced. Like, let's take that pressure off, and let's just kind of gather that information for ourselves, and seeing, where are some of these like movements in our pain first, before we just like start saying, nope, it's 100% this. And it's like, we're not going to build a relationship that way, and they're not going to build a relationship with themselves that way too. So it's just kind of easing our way into kind of collecting and gathering some of this information. And it's so tremendously helpful when the client is able to kind of create their own list too, of just kind of noticing, where are the shifts. When I feel stressed out, I notice that my headache comes on. When I feel angry, I notice that the pain, in my back starts to like really burn. So there are these messages in our bodies that we can start kind of really connecting with, and then just recognizing, okay, there's a little component of there now that I'm starting to realize for myself that is mind body based for sure. Yeah.
I love that. I say that too. I'm like, you don't know until you try. You won't know
Mhm.
anything. There's no point trying to tell your brain to believe anything until you try it. I was thinking of something else there. But yeah, until you try it and you start to build the evidence for yourself. So when you already have so much fear and so many other beliefs and stories about whatever your symptom is, um,
Mhm.
then you have an opportunity now to start to build another case against
Mhm.
it, another
Exactly.
evidence. There will for sure be times where you're just might be flared up or flung back into your symptoms, and the fear is back, and you 100% don't believe anymore, but then you're going to go and use your tools that you have in your toolbox, and then it starts to resolve, and you're like, oh, okay. And the belief, again, strength grows in increments, like the belief grows in increments, but it just takes to start to try that first step. And if you find tools that don't really work for you, you don't really like them, just find some other tools and keep trying. And then you'll start to build that evidence against the fear.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, like one of the other things that comes to mind too is like when clients have gone to multiple providers, multiple specialists too, and like the tests are inconclusive, or the doctors tell them, like, well, there's this finding, but it doesn't really make sense to why you're experiencing all of this. And so that information can also be um, utilized and kind of like, okay, it's something that we can hold on to for a bit and seeing, okay, tests don't say anything, doctors feel confused with your symptoms. Let's explore a little bit more of like what is occurring in your life too in regards to like stressors and our own perceptions of danger in our lives too. So yeah, for sure.
I love it. Okay, so we're getting through these questions. Last two. So the next one is, I'm not comfortable with the word compassion, which is a really cool question because I'm always talking about compassion. And I do have so many clients that are just like, I'm not mushy and soft, and I feel really like I can't talk to myself kindly. And so yeah, do you want to share on that question first?
Yes, yes. My question back to my clients is, why does it feel so hard to be kind to ourselves? Or why do we feel undeserving of, gentleness and kindness within ourselves too? And so the self-compassion piece doesn't necessarily mean, again, it doesn't shift who we are completely, but it gives us this window of opportunity just to see how we are treating ourselves and how our by default our go-to internal dialogue is critical, like internal criticism really, and recognizing that that is just contributing even more so to our central nervous system really activated, to then our symptoms really activated, feeling getting activated. And so recognizing that there's a little bit of a connection to all of these things. And so, recognizing, okay, maybe we can highlight a little bit of ourselves. Why does it feel like our internal criticism needs to be front and center all the time versus, even just an ounce of like self-compassion, seeing how that internal dialogue is, contributing even more so to our danger signals, to that threat signal too. And I often like to tell my clients is, let's can we just for a moment step like outside of this for a bit and see what is it, how is this dialogue helping us? Is it getting us closer to our goal, or is it just pulling us further away from the goal too? And often when we're in that like internal criticism dialogue, it's pulling us further away. And it's like, okay, let's like take a couple steps toward that goal of, hey, I am recognizing that I'm in internal turmoil right now, or that I'm really beating myself up, and we're saying, okay, how can I reframe? How can I just change the language a little bit for myself, and recognizing, and that in itself is self compassion too. It's literally pausing for a moment and saying, okay, how can I change a little bit of this internal dialogue for myself?
Yes, I love that, everything that you shared. And I always think of the like as compassion, like biologically, is like more like open and softer and more like, oh, like actually physically think of it like that way. And that the when you're really hard on yourself and like you're uptight almost, it's like, imagine like you were like a line, it would be all twisted. If you were a rope, it would be all twisted up and tough and hard, and when I went to a therapist once when I was really, really at rock bottom, I was really suicidal and I had been in some car crashes and different things that happened. I was probably had PTSD. And I went to this therapist and I just spoke to her about like I just shared with her my internal dialogue and she was horrified, like, I actually scared her, and I was so surprised by her reaction. I think she was emotionally shocked by my internal dialogue that I was just sharing with her very nonchalantly. I was like, I wasn't even exposing much about myself, I was just a normal share for me, and I just remember she was so shocked, and I was really, really sick, and my nervous system was so in stress. I had such little oxytocin and serotonin, and so it was just this vicious cycle of my thoughts, just berating myself and being so hard on myself, and then my that's keeping my nervous system in a state of stress. It was just this loop just going around and around and around and around, and it would have just kept on going forever and ever and ever and ever unless I interrupted it in some kind of way. And there's lots of different ways you can do it, but it ultimately you're looking to soften and bring in some kindness, bring in some spaciousness, bring in some other perspective. And biologically, that's going to relax you, calm you down, and help your body to heal.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I think that's, what you're in describing when you were sharing with the doctor, right? And to you, it felt so normal because it is. Again, it's that default, way of thinking for ourselves. It's the default of our internal dialogue. So once we start saying some of these things out loud, we start noticing like, ooh, maybe there is, I am a little harsh with myself, or, would we actually utilize or say the things that we say to ourselves to someone that we care about? Probably not. And, really implementing, like, not even implementing, but just recognizing and acknowledging that that language that we use and the way that we talk to ourselves is so, so impactful too. And we can definitely work with that in helping our healing journey too.
Definitely, and it can feel really awkward at first, for sure, and especially if you're used to speaking with your friends and family in a certain way, like derogatory or self-effacing, and that's been you. And a lot of these things I thought were me. I thought it was my personality that I was like very self-effacing and put myself down and like jokingly or whatever, or was just really hard on myself. But I really thought that that was me, that that was who I was, and then when you do get an opportunity to find some tools that can bring a bit more awareness in there, it's like, wow, that's not me. I just somewhere along the way, I learned this and I can unlearn it. I can let it go, but it can be super awkward at first. Again, it's like the strength grows in increments. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't know what to say now if I'm not using this same language or connecting with people in this same way, because I would also be very hard on other people. And so yeah, that's a journey.
It is a journey for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're on to our last question. I'm so delighted we got through all the questions. So the last one is, I don't resonate with the word safe. What can I do instead?
Mhm. Yeah. I think, feeling safe in itself, like it's one of the things that's said often, right? Like the sensation that you're feeling right now is safe. You are in this like the state that's in state of safety right now. But what that's one of the things I learned quickly is that a lot of my clients don't resonate with that word first off, right? And it's something that kind of going back to all the other things that we've been talking about, we're kind of building a relationship with ourselves. We're building that trust. So instead of jumping into and just saying, the sensation is safe, it's let's kind of assess what feels calm in our body, what feels neutral in our body. And, from there, we can kind of take the steps to build on feeling safe in our body. and recognizing that our body's not the enemy, because oftentimes we're feeling like our body is the enemy when we're experiencing such excruciating pain. So to kind of come in and say, you're feeling safe, to me, like from like what I see in sessions is almost like a slap in the face, like, no, this doesn't feel safe to me. Stop telling me that. And it's like, you're right, we're going to create a language that feels good for you first, and we'll work our way into when you start feeling actually safe in your body, then we'll start incorporating that word. And so I think that has been such a tremendous shift for a lot of my clients too, and recognizing, okay, again, pressure off on that. Let's find what feels calm, what feels neutral in your body, what feels maybe potentially just like soothing in your body too, and kind of honing in on these little spaces in our body potentially, or these neutral spaces in our body that can bring us to, kind of grounding ourselves a bit. And I often ask, like, clients to feel like, if you're like, I'm noticing you have earrings on, like, do you notice like your earrings in your ear? And they'll be like, oh, I didn't even notice that. And I'm like, okay, that is a state of neutrality that we can kind of pick up on. Can you just notice the texture of your clothes on your body? Can you just notice the chair, like how your body is supported by the chair itself? And so kind of bringing in and utilizing neutral spaces too can be so, so helpful in that. So yeah.
I love that. And when a client once described to me, like, if you just don't feel safe, and then you have all this evidence and all this experience and all these thoughts about that, right? And then you come in with like another voice, like trying to convince the other voice that it's safe. It's just like this debate. Both sides are as strong as the other. In fact, the unsafety one is probably stronger. Um, and so what I love to do with my clients is get them like sending safety signals to their brains, like through different kinds of like actions. And people are different, but like, like stroking your hair for some people, or like motorboat lips. And actually sending this safety signal to your brain. So as long together with the information, so you have this new information, you're gathering new evidence that maybe this sensation or this symptom might not be as dangerous as I had believed it was. And so I have this new information, and together with that new information, I'm gonna send my brain a different signal, like you're saying, this neutral kind of signal. And then there's so many different ways that you can do that. And some people have things like, when kids have blankets and teddies and stuff, that's their safe place. It's like, is there something that really triggers safety for you, and you can use that then as one of your tools in your toolbox to trigger safety at those times.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I love that too. Because I think even um, creating that awareness to what feels safe in our bodies, right? Like I feel one of the biggest things too is, using your hands, like rubbing your hands together feels like the most safe and soothing for a lot of clients too. So we do a lot of like hand work and kind of building, trust that this feels, if it feels good for them, then it's like most of the time it's I hear yes, and it's like, okay, good. This can be how we start kind of creating a bit of an association that this sensation and this behavior feels safe for us too. And yeah, even with utilizing our senses, I think it's so big. So oftentimes, like, smelling something, that a perfume or a lotion or something, if they have a really strong association of like, oh, this reminds me of someone or reminds me of something, can kind of bring them into the state of safety too. And so I think that utilizing our senses is so, so impactful
I love
for
that.
that. Yeah.
I love that. And this is something I actually use to help with my sleep, in a different way. But I had really, really bad insomnia when I started healing, because I healed my IBS, and then it symptom imperative bounced into like this insane insomnia. And then I started to, when I would fall asleep and then wake up, pound, heart racing and everything. And then all the different thoughts were just like ping, 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 ping. So I started
Mhm.
to do this thing. As soon as I would wake up like that, I would switch my attention because I love my bed sheets and my duvet and my crispy white pillow and my room, and I would immediately jump my thoughts into my senses. I like, oh, I love my bed. I actually like it is my favorite part of the day, getting into bed. So here I am in my bed and I love my duvet. I love the crunchy, like the feathers in my duvet. And it got to a point where I decided, wow, I just love my room so much. I love my bed so much. I love my duvet covers. Even if I don't fall asleep again, I'm happy to be lying here. And it changed over time doing that. It completely changed.
Mhm.
So eventually I would wake up and fall back asleep and wake up and fall back asleep. And I was interrupting that loop. And the other thing I was doing, I didn't realize at the time, is I was completely switching the expectation. I was
Mhm.
letting go completely. I said, actually, I don't care anymore if I fall asleep, taking off the pressure. I'm lying here, it's so quiet. The room I was in, I could see the stars through the skyline. You know what? If I stay awake all night, I'm in my bed, it's fine. And then boom, you just relax and fall asleep.
Yeah. So you, what I'm hearing is like you were like loosening the reins with some of these things too. It's like if it comes, right? And you're practicing really utilizing the power of language here too. Of like, I want this and I want to be in this space too. And so some of that can be really, really helpful and beneficial as part of like what else feels safe and comfortable for us too. So for sure. Yeah, love that.
Perfect. Well, we like right on time. I can't believe it. We got through all those 7 juicy questions. And just thank you so much for everything that you shared, your wisdom and your experience is just absolutely gold. And so just I know just so useful to so many people who will be listening to this. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, thank you so much for being here. It's so nice to meet you and connect with you. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day there in California.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure. And, yeah, I loved the space. This was amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, and for anyone who wants to get in touch with Bernice, I will leave all of your details in the comment section and they can get in touch with you or contact you. Or if you have anything else to share with people, I'll leave everything there for them to connect with you further.
Thank you. All right.